Hey, this is Fireman Rob. You know, optimal performance isn't something that happens just by accident. I know this for a fact from being a fireman and doing way too many Ironman triathlons in full firefighter gear. But everybody always asks me, what's your secret? I can give you one secret. That's the right stuff hydration. Hydration is important when it comes to being present in the moment, ready to run into the fires and being capable of showing up every single time at your best. The right stuff was created for NASA, by NASA, for their astronauts. Now it's trusted by professional athletes in Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL, and most of the top-tier college sports. It's not an accident to prepare yourself to be great. If you're looking for that next edge, go to therightstuff-usa.com and enter the code FiremanRob and you will get 10% off at your checkout. This is an opportunity I wouldn't pass up. I have and still do use the right stuff. It's serious hydration for serious athletes, from the weekend warriors to those on the front lines. Make this a part of your habits to be the best you daily.
Welcome to Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Being a fireman, father, veteran, husband, world record holder, and Ironman, he brings stories of experience to impact your life while challenging you to live it. What do you want from your life? Why do you want it? Are you willing to go through the challenges to get there? If you have the courage to take that first step, let this podcast be the catalyst to start your fire while you bring the resilience to make it continue to burn. Our lives are made up of moments called right nows. So let's get started. Forged in the Fires podcast with your host, Fireman Rob, begins now.
We got the same blood, the same blood. Stay by your side, it's ride or die. We've got the same.
All right, welcome back to Forged in the Fires podcast. I'm your host, Fireman Rob. Today's guest, amazing individual who understands leadership on so many different levels, from being a college Division I athlete to leading on the front lines in the military. He talks about leadership. He has insights and lessons that you really need to listen to today. John O'Grady, great to have you on the show.
Yeah, well, thanks very much, Rob. I appreciate it. And, I love everything that you're doing, especially in the leadership and mindset space. It's more needed now than maybe ever before. So thank you.
Oh, I appreciate it, sir. It's one of those things where, I love how I always ask my question to the guests when I have them come on the show. And, you identify that passion and purpose as one of the big things that really drives you. And you can tell by all the things that you did post your military career. What is that passion that still drives you today? Yeah,
for me, it's I tell people I'm trying to make the world a better place, leave it a better place than I found it. But I absolutely need other people's help in doing that. Through engaging people, whether it's young folks or, adults in the leadership space is one of the principal ways I go about doing that.
That's awesome. I mean, I want to go back actually to your military career. I mean, very decorated. You've been in active war zones. You've been a leader. I mean, tell me, what was the premise behind when you entered in as a West Point into West Point? What was your thought process? Because that's not an easy step to take for a lot
people. Yeah. Well, this will probably throw you and some of your guests off. But honestly, it was really about two things. My parents looked me in the eye and said, "Hey, it's not like we got the money to send you to college. So, figure it out. Or there's a community college down the road that I'm sure if you had a part-time job, you could probably figure that out as well." So that was item number one.
Wow.
Sometimes
I tell people, the reality.
Yeah. And I tell people, sometimes a lack of choices can actually be a good thing. And in this case, it was. The second one was I was an athlete and I was recruited for lacrosse to go to West Point. And West Point then and now is traditionally, a top 20 team in the nation in Division I men's lacrosse. And so, as without my frontal lobe having been fully formed yet, I said, yeah, sure. Okay. That sounds like a good idea. Not really knowing what I was getting myself into.
I love that. I love that. That is one of the best ways I've heard something like that said without my frontal lobe. Yeah, I appreciate that comment. I'm still working on mine.
You and me both.
So when you went through West Point, and I think a lot of people maybe don't understand like the academies and the rigors of the academies and really what you put yourself into, and you were an athlete on top of that. What were two things that you really brought out in yourself when you went through West Point?
Yeah, I think it is a stubborn perseverance. I put those two together. You could argue perseverance is stubbornness in and of itself, but I think perseverance is a little more intentional and thoughtful, where stubbornness is just sometimes, there's really no thought behind it. It's just, right. Damn it, I'm just going to get through this or do this. So there was that. And then also, even at that young age, whether it be the coaching staffs, the support folks at West Point, the professors, the instructors, and then really your fellow classmates. You don't realize it at the time, but you were in some pretty rare air.
Oh, by far.
And I never thought of myself in that way. And quite honestly, probably not a lot of my classmates did either, rightfully so. But when you get to reflect back and you realize just being around that, I mean, you can't help but absorb through osmosis and observation. You can't help but absorb some of their incredible characteristics, attributes, and traits. And that really was the beginning for me of a 30+ years of just being immersed in that type of environment, quite frankly.
And that's amazing. And when you look at your military career, and I mean, you have 2 Bronze Stars, you led many different soldiers in many different conflicts. And when you look at the leadership aspect, when you're in those austere environments, when you're in those challenging places and you're the leader that's making those decisions, what was the mindset that you had to have? I mean, I know that you come out of West Point with a skill set, right?
Yep.
But how did that transition when you got into those kind of environments and you knew the risks?
Yeah. Well, thankfully, it wasn't until much later in my career that I actually, was offered and given the humbling and incredible opportunity and responsibility to take America's sons and daughters and lead them into harm's way. So I think first and foremost, it's realizing the gravity of the sacred trust that the American people, whether they realize it or not, who give their sons and daughters, has with me. And I took that very personally, even though I didn't know personally every single mom or dad or brother or sister. I took it as if I did.
Wow.
So that's the first thing. And then the second kind of thing was, hey, there are going to be bad days. There are going to be bad stretches of days. And early on, developing for myself, but as well as the organization and the people within it that I led, a mindset of opportunity. There's an opportunity and there's a gift in every situation. And it's our job as leaders to identify that and then articulate that to our people in a very clear-eyed way, not in a Pollyannish way, at all,
right.
But just in a clear-eyed manner.
I love it, and it translates perfectly into your logo, and your brand is probably one of my favorites I've ever seen. OG leadership. That's awesome. It's a perfect combination for your last name, but ogleadership.com is where you can find all this stuff. But how did that translate? How were you able to translate what you learned in the combat environment or while you're playing lacrosse, how were you able to translate that to corporate environments? Or, I saw that you've went to, the defensive, I think it was the defensive coordinators for the Jets. How did you translate that into something that they could tangibly put into their environment or their job when it's not as life or death?
Yeah, that's a great question. So context is everything. I fundamentally believe that the key leadership attributes and traits and characteristics are not only transmutable, but they are transferable. And so if you take that approach and you buy into and you believe that, then really what it becomes about is the context in which you put those things into action. And so really for me, it's a little bit of study, it's a little bit of, conversation, a lot of listening to folks in those environments. So you start getting a greater appreciation of their struggles, their challenges, and the context in which they are exercising leadership. And once you do that, it's pretty easy then to bridge, at least I've found it's pretty easy to bridge the gap, with those folks, whether it be, like you said, working with the New York Jets, with Greg Williams, who I'm still friends with today, different collegiate NCAA Division I coaches, U.S. national team gold medal winning coaches, and then out in the corporate space as well, whether be IBM or others. And so, awesome. Those are really kind of the foundational pieces of it.
And that's huge to be able to translate. What does it mean to you for your legacy? Because we all do things in our lives to create an impact, not just on our families, but on other people within our circle, and in addition to our community. What does it mean for you to take all of your life experiences that you've, obviously they're not all easy, and translate that into something that's going to possibly, one person can take something and impact their lives? What does that mean to you for your legacy?
Yeah. Well, to me, that's really, that is everything for me when I think about legacy, which, I don't think about often, but when I do think about my purpose and my passion and what I'm trying to do, I fundamentally believe one of the saddest aspects of human kind, of mankind, since the beginning of time, and maybe even more so now than ever, is that I think I'd put it at we have about a 2% understanding on average of the impact, the imprint that we leave with other human beings that we come in contact with. Right?
Yes.
And if you think about that for a second, then you go, okay, well, what might the other 98% look like? And that really then, helps you understand that, okay, the way I go about interacting with my fellow human beings, regardless of who they are, what I might feel about them, whether I agree or disagree, needs to be fundamental and foundational in everything that I'm doing, as another human being, just to be, the example, if nothing else. And it hit me when I got out of the Army, and over the course of, 5, 10 years, after leading different people and organizations, where you get the random email or the phone call, and it's like, hey, you don't realize it, but, XYZ happened. That was super impactful. And I just felt the need to come back and tell you that, this many years later. Oh, wow. And I read the email and I remember the person. I don't remember those details that they articulate about a particular interaction I had. Right. Man, if you would have put a gun to my head before that email and even after, I honestly don't remember that specific thing. But man, they do. And it was so important to them. And it had such an impact that they felt like they had to reach out 5, 10 years later. And so when I think of legacy, I'm like, okay, well, after I'm gone, what are those other stories, and how are people going to then interact with other people based off of things that they experienced with me?
It's so powerful. And it's perfect lead in for, you talk about trust framework. I think that's such a perfect combination of like kind of what you just talked about. But tell me more about the trust framework, because having been in the military and being in the fire service, that's paramount.
Yeah. Yeah. And absolutely. Fire, police, first responders in general. But I would argue that, so I believe that the number one challenge right now, or definitely top three, right? I'm willing to have, the discussion and the arguments. I don't have to have the number one spot. Is we as a society, everything from our most fundamental individual one-on-one relationships, all the way up through the highest parts of our government, democratic institutions, corporations, etc., medical, you name it, right?
Yep.
We are suffering from what I refer to as a trust deficit. People talk about the deficit when they, the financial, right? The fiscal, right? And how that's a huge problem. And I would argue, yes, it is. I agree. But we should also be talking about the trust deficit that exists in our world today. And so when I was getting ready to deploy to combat, leading about 550 people into Afghanistan, into a battle space about the size of Rhode Island, what I realized was I can't be everywhere, nor should I be everywhere, even if I could,
right?
Because I've got people who are below me who need to be empowered and held accountable and responsible. And so over that type of battle space, in the conditions that we're in, I needed to build trust as the number one thing. I had other people in my organization who are going to worry about weapons qualifications and everything else. But trust for me is the primordial waters in any organization, in any relationship. And it's why so many relationships fail. It's why so many organizations fail, because they start going after a whole bunch of other things that if the bedrock of trust isn't firm and steady, they will eventually fail. And we watch them do it time and time and time again.
It's so true. And, when you look at trust, it's a hard thing, because especially for the military, when you go in there and you have, new soldiers coming in and out of different units, and when you get into different environments, what do you see as like the main idea of how that trust is gained?
Yeah. So it's a couple of things. First, it's defining as best you can what trust is and articulating that. Because if you ask most people, you go into a room, and I do this when I do workshops and other things. Hey, okay, write down a 3 to 5 sentence definition of trust that you'd be willing to share with the group. You know how many times I've actually had somebody get up and be able to actually do that?
Yeah.
And do it well?
Yeah.
I mean, that's almost never.
Right.
So problem number one, we have to get trust from more than a feeling, because it is a feeling, very much so. But we have to get it beyond that so that we can then bring it into our day-to-day interactions, and recognize that each and every human interaction is an opportunity to either increase the trust or decrease the trust. Rarely will it ever stay status quo. Like right now, we're 17 minutes into this, and you whether you realize it or not, you trust me more now than when the conversation started, or less. That's just a fact.
Yeah, I love that. I love that thought process too, because that, if we go into situations and we think that it's just going to be status quo no matter what we do, there's less likelihood, like you said, of the opportunity. I love that. When you look at the engagement of that process, when you were a leader in the military, and these young individuals, because I think that's one of the hardest things is in the military, you have these young individuals that are looking for identities. Just like you said, I went into West Point, without a front lobe, how do you get that consciousness of like, hey, every single moment is an opportunity for them?
Again, it's articulating this to your, I'll use the phrase, I don't like the phrase, but, subordinate leaders, direct reports in the civilian world, right? Or whatever other phrase, and empowering them to then communicate that to their people, because when you're in charge of 550 people, I'd like to think I'm going to be able to speak to everyone individually every single day, but that's just not reality, right? And so it's first getting those key leaders on board and to understand it, and then it's to live it literally every single day. And so for me, the way I broke down trust was it's competency, it's plus reliability, plus an ability to communicate effectively, plus love. And love, I don't mean that by the hallmark, emotional, card.
It's not a card,
although there's a part of that, right? There is a part of that. That for me was how I'm going to view you through the lens of trust. And our number one job as leaders, and how I am going to first and foremost evaluate you as a subordinate leader, is by the level of trust that we have between one another and the level of trust that you have between yourself and those you lead. Number one criteria. I'll get to all the other stuff later. That's the most important thing.
That's huge. That's huge. I mean, wow. I love that stuff. And it's so important for people to understand their potential. Now, when you started at West Point, did you see yourself as, rising to the level of colonel? Did you see yourself rising to the level of doing this stuff? Or was it, your expectations like, hey, I'm just going to get to practice?
Yeah. So when I entered West Point, now I'm going to date myself a little bit, right?
Do you want me to beep it out?
Yeah, right. Like it's a curse word. Okay, so just get ready with the beeper. But I'll just say there was a movie out at the time, and there was this character called Gordon Gekko. And it was similar to, kind of, for the younger people in the crowd, maybe The Wolf of Wall Street, and I'm probably
there you go,
for that one. But hey, my thing was, I'm going to go to West Point. It's a 5-year commitment. I'm going to get out after 5 years. I'm going to go to Wall Street. I'm going to be Gordon Gekko, and I'm going to make a ton of money. And I didn't necessarily even care how. I just knew that's what I was going to do. Right.
Yep.
30 years later, I'm a colonel in the United States Army. And it's interesting because a few points in time over the course of my career, when I kind of thought, oh, shoot, maybe this is it. Maybe my career is over. And I don't necessarily mean, like I'm in a firefight. I mean, for different reasons, right? Run into the wrong boss, et cetera, all sorts of different things. I kind of started asking myself, I'm like, well, wait a minute. That young kid, that is how this all started. And why is it that I'm still here? And what I realized was that the military, at least for me, filled the void that was created the last time I walked off of an athletic field in Mikey Stadium at West Point in the spring of 1990. Wow. All the things that, I had experienced as a young kid all the way up to being a young man, teamwork, perseverance, setting goals, overcoming adversity, camaraderie, shared visions, shared purpose, sacrifice. All those things were things that kind of fueled me. And the military became the conduit for me to continue to live in that world. And I wasn't particularly conscious of it initially, quite frankly. So,
and that's
how I got to 30. That and a lot of luck.
Hey, and commitment, it's a culture. That's what it's interesting because, a lot of athletes will go into the military and they'll see that culture is similar. And then you get out and then you're like, okay, well, where's this culture in normal society?
Right.
That's do you see that a lot from military members or from companies that maybe are looking at hiring military members? Like, what do we have to have as a culture to have them be those optimal performers?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few things I think associated with that. So first, I agree with your observation. And I think it's one of the fundamental reasons when you look at people transitioning out of either professional or national team level sports and or the military, the kind of struggle with the transitions, there are a lot of parallelisms and there's a lot of just flat out exact similarities that exist with that, because largely there's this all of a sudden lack of the culture that, again, they may not even have been overly cognizant of. It's some of the things that I talked about, and it's knowing that you're kind of part of this tribe, right? And it's a unique tribe. It's not better. It's not special.
It's very unique.
But it's unique, right?
Yeah.
I'm always careful not to use words like special or better or anything like that, because we're not. But we are unique, and that should be celebrated and recognized. And then, to create that in the corporate world, it's a challenge, and it's not going to happen overnight. And it's a commitment to things that don't immediately translate, to the CFO, of an organization.
So good. A great point.
Yeah. And so that's hard, especially then when you're starting to deal with shareholders, stockholders, board members. And so I frankly, I see pockets of it inside of large organizations. Rarely is it found holistically through a large corporate entity. I'm sure they exist, right? So if you have one of those organizations out there and you're a CEO and listening, contact Rob, and he'll put you in touch with me, and we can have a better conversation about it. Or just come on Rob's show and I'll listen.
No, go to ogleadership.com, because that is one of the coolest websites ever.
I appreciate that.
I need to get that name. Or you got to have shirts.
Maybe I sell you the rights.
John, you got to have shirts, man. You got to have shirts.
Yeah, I know.
It needs to be a shop. No, I think it's so powerful what you're doing, and one of the things that I always love is when individuals like yourself who has experiential knowledge that translates beyond just what normal people would go through in their lives, or what normal people would be able to experience, because a lot of people, it's just not their nature or not in their wheelhouse to be able to do this.
Sure.
But to be able to get that information from somebody like yourself, it's so powerful. And I want to make sure people go to ogleadership.com. I always end my podcast the same way, with 3 questions. Are you ready, sir?
I am ready.
Oh, I like it. All right. If you could go back to your 18-year-old self and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
Okay, so I'll give you the first answer, and I'll decide whether it has to be bleeped out.
No, we don't bleep anything on the show.
Okay. Number 1 is don't be a dick. It sounds simple.
It sounds simple, but it isn't.
Right. But it's amazing when you're not one, just how incredible things can become.
Yes. And actually your 18-year-old self would probably understand that terminology.
Yeah, it would understand it. Wouldn't listen, but would understand it.
I love it. All right. So the second one, if you could give, a lot of people are going through challenges and struggles and constantly in their lives. And if you could give people 2 habits to incorporate into their daily lives that can help them to continue to move forward, what would those 2 things be?
Yeah. So the first one is one of remembering. So when you're going through however dark, whatever you're going through, there was a preceding moment where you thought, this is the worst day in my life. This is the worst news I got. This is the worst, week, moment, whatever. There was something that preceded this current one that you're in, right? And for many of us, the longer we're on this earth, the longer that list becomes. So don't forget, you've already made it through whatever you thought your worst day was multiple times before. So why would you not give yourself some credit, some grace and patience, and then perseverance to know you're going to get through this one too? Because awesome. The history suggests that you will. Right. That's item number one. I think the second one is, and this is something I had a 3x5 card, and it may sound a little morbid. It's not meant to be, but every morning in combat, I started doing this. It was suggested to me by a mentor. And I wrote down, today is the day I die.
Wow.
Now you would think, what are you kidding me, man? Like, what kind of dark psychos leading, what? Like, are you right in the head? But it's very grounding, because imagine, right? If you were told, hey, I'm just letting you know, you ain't waking up tomorrow.
Oh, that's
how
powerful.
would you go about your day differently? What would
yes.
you do differently? How would you act differently? And I found that to be very grounding, and actually helped me be a better person, be a better leader, make better decisions wow. with a longer view than just maybe the instant gratification view of things.
And it accepts your fear.
Yeah.
That's huge. I love that one. I mean, yes, a lot of people would be scared of having a 3x5 card that says that, but that's the whole point of it, is like, if right. you accept it, now we move on, Right. Wow.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's pretty freeing in a way too. Yeah. To your point.
I love that. All right. This last one's going to be fun. If you could have coffee with 3 individuals at a firehouse table. So in other words, you can ask them any question they have to answer. Any 3 individuals that can be deceased or alive. Who would those 3 be and why?
Yeah. So for me, it would be Jesus Christ. That's
a good one. Yep.
Because, man, I got a lot of questions for him or her. I'm open to the idea.
Yeah, just questions.
Yep. It would be, I think I go back and forth. I've been asked this question before, as you might imagine. I go back and forth between Gandhi and Martin Luther King, but I think I'll land on Gandhi because of less of a Western perspective. That would help, I think, round things out a little bit for me. And then the last one would be George Washington.
Oh, yes, I agree with that one. Yeah, there's a lot of things we don't know about George Washington. I've read a few different things. It's crazy. Yeah. I love it. That's a great table. Make sure you go to ogleadership.com. And if you want to have John come out there and do, he's got team building exercises, he's got keynote speeches, he's got summits, all sorts of things. Make sure you go to ogleadership.com. John, it's been a pleasure having you on today.
Likewise. And again, thanks so much for what you do, and thanks for all your listeners and what they do and tuning in. So thank you.
Thanks for listening and supporting the Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Remember, don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast, and please share this episode with a friend or family. To find out more about Fireman Rob or reach out about a question, go to www.firemanrob.com. Until next time, live your life forged in the fires.